Hi everyone, so welcome to your first lecture for the research methods block that we're going to be moving through in this semester. So in this first lecture, I'm just going to be introducing you to the research methods block that we're going to be doing and really trying to focus your attention on doing research methods in relation to health and well-being. So I'm hoping that, throughout this module that we're doing on research methods, that it's actually going to be really useful in helping you to think about your research projects next year and giving you a bit of an insight as to what you can expect when you go on to do that. So I'm going to give you today an overview of some of the key questions and issues that we're going to be exploring throughout the next few weeks, and really trying to introduce you both to the theoretical assumptions that can underpin the research that we do, as well as some of those practical considerations that are really fundamental when planning research and thinking about doing a research project. So we're going to be thinking about the role of research and what it can offer to being able to better understand health and well-being, and in particular, better understanding health inequalities. So the purpose of this block then, the assessment that you're going to be doing for research methods is a research portfolio. So we've broken that down for you into a few little tasks, and we're going to be going through the whole research portfolio in your tutorial. So we'll give you a more in-depth overview of the actual portfolio, but I just kind of wanted to introduce it in this lecture to help you begin to think about some of the things that we're looking for you to show us through completing this block. So the research portfolio measures your ability to show an appreciation of different research methodologies, ethical issues, and the appropriateness of various methods of data generation as applied to research in health and well-being. So there's a few different bits in there that we can pick up on. So we're going to be introducing you to the range of different ways that you might choose to research health inequality, health and well-being. We're going to be thinking about different methodologies. So we're going to be looking at qualitative methodologies, quantitative methodologies, and really trying to assess what the differences are between those different methodologies, and how actually, because of their differences, they offer different things when we're thinking about understanding health and well-being. In addition to some of those theoretical questions, we're going to be thinking about the use of methods, so some of the practicalities of research methods, those things that we need to think through when we're actually doing research. So whilst it's really important to think about our approach to research, what are the kinds of questions that we want to answer, it's also really important that we think about how actually we're going to go out and do that. And making sure that our research methods enable us to do research in an ethical and in a really sensitive way. So some of the key things to think about when doing research relating to health inequality is actually that a lot of the questions are going to be potentially quite sensitive. So how can we generate this data in the most sensitive way? We'll also be thinking about the different types of data that we can generate. So is it going to be, statistical data, or actually are we interested in data that reflects people's experiences of health and well-being and health inequality? So these are all of the different questions that we're going to be addressing throughout the block on research methods, and in particular that we're going to be assessing you in showing us your understanding of in the research portfolio. So some of the key questions that we're going to be thinking about. So a broad kind of question that, can really get us thinking is actually, what is social research? So it's important to think about the role of social research, what it can offer, and what really counts as social research. So this is important because when we're planning a research project, we want to know what the aims of that project is. So we're really going to be trying to break down, what's the purpose of doing research? Is it just because we want to know more about a certain topic? Or actually, is it to generate knowledge so that we can act upon that knowledge and make these important changes? So when we're thinking about the purpose, for example, of research in health and well-being, it's really quite important that the research that we're doing has the potential to, you know, create solutions. It has the potential to identify problems that people are experiencing, because without identifying some of those problems, those solutions, the role of research can be really limited. So whilst we might be interested in understanding something just for the sake of our own interest, actually, when we're researching health and well-being and health inequalities, it's important to think about how that research and research findings might be helpful. How can they impact those communities that we might be talking about? So how can it help us to understand health inequalities, and that through that understanding, it can help us to then challenge them? Another key question is actually, how do we approach research? Now, this is something that we're going to be opening up in the first couple of weeks of lectures, in that actually our approach to research is different for everyone. So we've got the two main methodological approaches to research, which is qualitative and quantitative. But within those methodologies, we have different research assumptions and approaches to research. So what do we think of as data, for example? And then based upon what we think of as data, how do we then go and collect that data? So are we interested in figures, in numbers, in statistics, or actually are we interested in people's experiences of something or people's understandings? So these kinds of questions are important when we are addressing how research comes about. So reflecting upon our own development as a researcher and how that informs the research process. Some practical considerations to think about: scoping out the literature. So having thought about the purpose of research and the different approaches to doing research, it's then obviously really important to think about, you know, what your research is going to be doing. And to be able to identify the role of our own research, it's really important that we scope out what we know already. So what research has already been done in the particular area that we're interested in, and what kind of questions does that research raise? So we're going to be thinking about doing reviewing literature and really trying to identify, you know, what's known about this topic. Are there any big gaps? So have you been reading about, you know, health inequality, and actually you're struggling to find research on something that you're really interested in? So when we are scoping the literature, it's actually really interesting to identify not only what we know, but also what we don't know, because often our own research builds upon that, what we don't know. So we'll do research in order to try and address a particular gap that we might have identified. Developing this, we're going to think about designing research and writing research questions. So research isn't as simple as being interested in, say, the relationship between health inequality and obesity and just going off and asking people what they think. So we need to have a really structured and systematic plan for actually going out and doing that research. So this is about research design and research strategy, and part of the research portfolio that you're going to be completing is actually asking you to, you know, to begin planning out, if you were going to research this particular area, what kind of methods would you be using? What kind of questions would you be asking? What are the key objectives of your research project? So we'll be looking at a range of different methods, both qualitative and quantitative, and then it's up to you on, you know, knowing about those methods to be able to select the most appropriate one that's going to answer your research question. Importantly, no method is perfect, and that's something that, again, we can think about later on in the teaching sessions. There's always going to be drawbacks to a particular method, but your role is justifying why the method that you've chosen, despite issues, despite limitations, is still the most appropriate way of addressing the questions that you've asked. Finally, we'll be thinking briefly about ethical issues. So ethical issues relating to the anonymity of people that we might be working with, protection against harm, ethical issues and considerations relating to the generation of knowledge. So how much does this reflect what we think is happening? So we'll be thinking about a range of questions. And again, looking at ethical issues is important because when you come to do your project next year, you will have to take part in ethical review. So it's good to think about some of those key ethical issues now, so that later down the line, you kind of know what to expect. So this key question then, what is research? What is social research? So Blackster says that research is the diligent and systematic inquiry or investigation into a subject in order to discover facts or principles. So key to that definition then is a systematic inquiry or investigation. So what we can interpret from that wording is that research is something that is structured. It's something that's planned out to some extent. And we're going to think about in more detail throughout the rest of the weeks, the amount of structure that a research project has depends on the questions being asked, depends on the approach to research, but there will always be some kind of structure and some planning and designing of that project. So even open and flexible research will have, those key kind of groundings to keep it on track and on point. The second bit for this definition that's important is this discovery of facts or principles. So the idea is that we do research, and in doing research, we come up with new knowledges. So we discover, different things that are happening. We discover new understandings. That might be testing previous understandings that we had, or it might actually be, introducing new ways of looking at things, so new theories, new kinds of concepts. So these are all the kind of purpose of research, and these are at the core of understanding what research is. So what does social research tell us then? So there are different kinds of questions that we can ask when we're doing social research, and because of those different questions, social research has a number of different purposes. So Babby, 2008, says that some of these purposes of research might be exploring, so exploratory research. It might be about describing, so describing different processes, different means of organising things, or it might be explaining, so maybe explaining a relationship between two different factors. And so research based upon how we question, how we write aims, will be seeking to do one of these things. So if we think about exploratory research is really quite open. So it's usually seeking to just, be quite open in exploring a new relationship, for example. So often exploratory research will actually generate many more questions than it can address. So it might be opening up a new topic of inquiry. It might be opening up a new relationship that's not really been thought out of before. And exploratory research in that sense is really exciting. You're opening yourself up into that unknown, which as a researcher can sometimes be uncomfortable, but actually really exciting at the same time. So it means that we don't really know what to anticipate from our findings. Descriptive research is much more about accurately describing something that's going on. So it could be describing a population, a situation, a relationship, a phenomenon. So it answers the what, where, when, and how questions. So it describes exactly what's happening. Now, what it doesn't do is explain why this thing might be happening. So whilst it might be able to describe different populations in relation to areas, in relation to say a population, in relation to different, employment rates, all of these kinds of questions that we might describe a relationship, it doesn't actually explain why that relationship is there. So it's descriptive rather than explanatory. For example, the relationship between the prevalence of smoking or drinking habits within certain populations. That's just another example of one of the relationships that we might describe. So explanatory research goes beyond this. So not only is it identifying a particular relationship or a particular idea, but explanatory research actually is trying to explain a phenomenon that's going on. So it's explaining a particular relationship between two factors. It's explaining maybe why certain parts of the population experience higher levels of poverty and deprivation. So it's seeking to, it builds upon that exploratory and descriptive research that might have already taken place to really explain why these relationships, these phenomenons are happening. Now we can also look at different goals of social research. So we've looked at what social research is, what it can tell us, and now we move into the goals of social research. And again, research, depending on the approach to research, depending upon the questions, it might meet different goals. It's not gonna it's very unlikely that one piece of research is going to be able to address all of these. But some of the goals that research might aim to do can be broken down in the following ways. So identifying general patterns and relationships. So this is, similarly to what we've just said. So it's about describing some kind of pattern or relationship that's taking place. Another one is testing and redefining theory. So a lot of research can also be about actually testing knowledge that's already been generated. So if we've got particular theories, particular ideas, so a theory of understanding health inequality, a theory of understanding people's experiences, for example, we might want to put that to the test. And that's, one of the things that we can do in research. Make predictions. So research might be seeking to establish a relationship between something in order to predict maybe something in the future. So we get this quite a lot now, don't we, where, research, for example, a lot of research on climate change. So actually by identifying processes and phenomenon that's happening at the moment, research into climate change is making really important predictions about what we can expect to happen to our world and our environment in the future. Another goal of social research is interpreting phenomena. So this is where we're having our own interpretation of something that's going on. So we might be seeking to explain a process by interpreting that relationship, that process that we already know is happening. Explore diversity. So this is really important in that people, if we're thinking about health and well-being, we're thinking about people aren't a homogenous group, okay? We're all different, and even within different population groups, different identity groups, there are a diversity of experiences happening, and so research can be looking to just gain an awareness of some of that diversity, which again is really, really important if we're thinking of opening ourselves up. So if we're looking at a particular concept, so if we're looking at, you did the social model of disability last year. So if we're thinking about diversity of disabled people, we need that in order to model disability. So we're not saying that there's one story of disability, but that there's actually a diverse range of experiences, of knowledge that we need to take into account. Give voice. So research has a really, really important role in providing a platform for potentially marginalised people, in being able to, raise awareness of issues that are important to them, have an opinion on the experiences, on the things that are happening to them within their everyday life. So this is really, really important, and particularly when we're thinking about groups who might be vulnerable, who might be marginalised. So actually, how is our research going to facilitate self-empowerment? How can we listen to the voices of people in order to learn something new? Finally, advancing new theories. So this is where research can actually create a new theoretical framework for looking at a particular issue. And again, you know, that might not be realistic for the scope of your research, but that actually when we are asking new questions, that all of these are a potential. So something that we're going to be thinking about in the next couple of lectures is the research journey. And on the screen, we've got a little visual representation of what that research journey might be. So we've got beginning with theoretical perspective, epistemology, moving to methodology, and then data collection. So I'm going to briefly kind of talk you through this research journey, but like I said, we are going to be coming back to it. So the kind of the epistemology, methodology, the bit kind of tongue twisters, the long words, so we're going to break them down and really try and develop your understanding of them and get you feeling comfortable in being able to think about them quite critically. So to think about the entire research journey, we need to think about what's underpinning the actual doing of research, and that is the theoretical perspective and the epistemology. So these kinds of questions about what knowledge is, how do we generate knowledge, they underpin our research decisions, because based upon what we think of as knowledge and how we think we generate that knowledge is going to inform our choice of methods and then the data that we collect. So we'll be opening up these a little bit more, and in particular we're going to be thinking about qualitative and quantitative approaches, so methodology, so thinking about qualitative methodology and quantitative methodology, and how they as well are informed by the epistemology and theoretical perspective. So by visually presenting the research journey in this way, what I really want to illustrate and kind of emphasize is that there's a thread going through the whole research journey. So there needs to be connection between the theoretical perspective and the data collection that happens during the research. So these aren't separate, disjointed parts of research, but actually they need to all tie in together and stay together when they're put together, tell us this story about the research journey, about what research is and how we've gone about that. Research paradigms. So this is building upon the research journey that I just mentioned in the previous slide. Theoretical perspectives would be the ontology. So ontology refers to questions around what is knowledge, and then epistemology, moving beyond that, would be how do we understand knowledge, how do we access knowledge, and then the methodology is the blueprint or the kind of roadmap underpinning research. So ontology is our perception of social reality, and depending upon our own ontological beliefs, we might perceive that knowledge is, it's a single truth, so that knowledge is something that we can systematically measure and identify through experiments, for example. Or we might think of knowledge as something that's socially constructed and actually constructed between social actors, so between us, and that it's something that, multiple realities exist. So then our epistemology is how we come to know this knowledge then. So is knowledge something that's external from us? It's that single truth that exists, or actually is knowledge something that's interpreted and constructed by us, and therefore something that we access by tapping into conversations, tapping into experiences and perceptions. And then the methodology, as I said, is that blueprint. So it's actually the research design that is informed by our ontology and epistemology. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play this short video, and what I'd like you to do is to make notes on the video, and we're going to be discussing this in the seminar, so it breaks down these research paradigms a little bit more. So make sure you watch the video and make notes, and if needs be, please do go back to this video. So I'll put the link at the bottom so that you can go back and watch it if you would like some extra support.
Doing a research project can be daunting, especially when you have to learn a whole set of new terms. In this video, I will explain the relationship between research paradigm, ontology, and epistemology. In the simplest terms, the following picture describes the relationship between ontology, epistemology, and research paradigm. So what does ontology and epistemology mean? Well, ontology examines the nature of reality, while epistemology examines how you can examine reality. Ontology is interested in addressing the question, what is reality? There are several ontologies that exist. For the purposes of this video, I will use these three ontologies. Firstly, the belief that there is only one single reality or truth. Secondly, the belief that there are multiple realities. Thirdly, that reality is constantly negotiated, debated, or interpreted. Epistemology refers to how an individual understands knowledge, how they understand their own thinking process, and how they think others know. In other words, epistemology addresses the question, how can I know reality? There are several different epistemologies that exist. For the purposes of this video, I will use these three epistemologies. Firstly, the belief that knowledge can be measured using reliable designs and tools. Secondly, the belief that reality needs to be interpreted to discover the underlying meaning. Thirdly, that knowledge should be examined using whatever tools are best suited to solve the problem. When you combine your ontology and epistemology together, you are able to get a holistic view of how you understand knowledge. This is what we mean when we refer to a research paradigm. Using the three ontologies and three epistemologies I mentioned before, I will now show you how these combine to form the three most common research paradigms in social sciences: positivism, constructivism, and pragmatism. Positivists have the ontology that there is one single reality or truth, and the epistemological stance that knowledge can be measured. In contrast, constructivists believe that there are multiple realities, and the epistemological stance that knowledge needs to be interpreted to discover the underlying meaning. Finally, pragmatists believe that reality is constantly negotiated, debated, or interpreted, and the epistemological stance that knowledge should be examined using whatever tools are best suited to solve the problem. Once you have determined your research paradigm, you are able to establish the approach and methodology that is best suited to examine the knowledge you are interested in. This is why it is important to understand your research paradigm. It will improve the quality of your research.
Okay, so like I said, feel free to go back to that video. I think it's really, really useful in actually breaking down the research paradigms, which for many students, when we first begin to look at them, can seem really quite overwhelming. So I want you to be reassured that we're going to be coming back to these and that it's absolutely fine if you're struggling with them conceptually at the beginning. We will definitely be spending time just breaking them down a little bit more. So to finish then, I wanted to quickly kind of talk you through the plan of the research portfolio. So like I said, we're going to be breaking this down into more detailed guidance, and all of that is going to be available on Moodle for you. But just to kind of give you a bit of an insight as to what you can expect. So the first task is an annotated bibliography, and then your second task is a critical review. So the idea is that together these help you formulate a review of literature. So they do that kind of initial scoping of the literature. So an annotated bibliography is a summary of different articles that you've found, and then your critical review is an opportunity for you to bring those together and to assess kind of what these different pieces of literature tell us. How do they support one another? How do they maybe contradict one another? So we'll look at some key questions later to get you thinking about that. Then the second two parts, you've got research, design and strategy, part 1 and part 2. And this is helping you to start plan out your research. So part 1 is going to be thinking about writing a research question, aims and objectives based upon the scoping of the literature that you've done. The research question, the aims and objectives is based upon what you think is missing from the literature, so what you're going to add to it. And then the second part of this is the later one that you'll submit is going to be research methods. So it's going to be indicating how you would actually go about and address that question. How would you meet the aims and objectives that you've set out? So really looking at the different research methods and how they justifying how they will help you answer the questions that you've sought to answer. So I hope you've enjoyed that kind of quick introduction of research methods. In the next lecture, we're going to be looking at research methods and research in health and wellbeing much more specifically. Thank you.